Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Time for Truth Show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to a Time for Truth show. It's a pleasure to be back with you again tonight. And before we start, a little housekeeping. Many of you have been asking, how do I avail myself of more of these great shows? Very simple. Go on YouTube, click on a Time for Truth show, hit the subscribe button, and you'll be availed of 4 to 5 years of segments, episodes on workable techniques, technology, and truth. The purpose of our show, to collaborate, to bring you the best, and to help you live a stress-free life, if that's possible, but we try. So tonight, we have a very special theme, and we have a very special guest with us, all the way from the Philippines. And tonight, we're going to be talking about what's been going on in our world. The chaos, the violence, the corruption, the lack of tolerance, and in recent weeks, the tremendous tensions that we feel. Why is this happening? And we want to go over some actually landmark agreements and covenants that we have that are in place. Why aren't they being followed? The International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights of 1966 and the UN General Assembly's Declaration on the elimination of all forms of intolerance and discrimination based on religious belief of 1981, both reinforced religious freedom, not on national law, but international global law. And according to the Cambridge University Press, approximately 90% of the world's state nations' constitutions guarantee religious freedom. So why are we experiencing the prejudice, the persecution, the violence that we see internationally? Why is it that the Pew Research Center reports that the actual enjoyment of religious freedom has declined globally, with around 3/4 of the world's population living under a regime that severely restricts the religious freedom of its citizens, and that the violation of religious freedom has increased over the past decade? How can this be in a world of such tremendous technological advances that it seems that our humanity doesn't keep pace with the science and these other amazing discoveries that we're having every single day across the globe? In fact, the legitimacy of religious freedom is being questioned in the West. And this deterioration of morality and spiritual respect has led to deterioration of the familial structure, led to the runaway mental and emotional illnesses that we see ever increasing globally, a devastating global illicit drug epidemic, violence, war, insecurity. Something needs to be done. We can't allow this to continue unrestrained. And so, from our show, A Time for Truth, we want to cover this topic tonight with a very special leader in this world. And if you will, engineer, let's put him up on the screen live. And bid a warm welcome to Dr. Jerry Jorge Perez, the Tagle PhD, founder of the Trauma and Wellness Recovery Institute. Welcome, Doc. How are you doing?
Mabuhay! I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Mabuhay to you.
Am I coming in?
And I want to,
Yes.
go right immediately into the show. With all what we're facing globally, what do you feel needs to happen to guide our world in a positive direction regarding what's happening globally?
Yes. So there's so much happening in the world today. And what is the solution given the turmoil globally in the Americas, in Asia, and Europe? Uh, I had an opportunity a few years back in working with a specific solution. Particularly, I was working with soldiers and police officers, frontline, to recover from an actual battle scene, an actual shooting. And we worked with overcoming their trauma in a non-invasive way by allowing them to re-access their own personal freedom. And this very, very effective we are launching here in North America now. So I could speak and in terms of what we're trying to do and what we're working on in Asia and in North America.
Well, very, very interesting, because the Surgeon General of the United States of America recently came out with an advisory showing and demonstrating scientifically the importance of social interaction, and that scientifically there seems to be an effect that we interchange with each other that's not what we thought. We used to think it was just a religious philosophy or a matter of thinking or a good way of being human to others. But now the Surgeon General of the United States of America, the top physician of the country, has shown that without social interaction, we get physically and mentally ill, that we actually develop cardiovascular, diabetes, dementia, stroke. It's amazing. So please tell us a little bit about this program that you have that has to do with this non-pharmacological, non-surgical, but humane and spiritual trauma relief program. Please explain this to us.
Surely. So what we're looking at is a comprehensive, non-invasive, and holistic approach of working with the body, relieving oneself of the physical pains and impact of trauma to the body. That's one. And second is then being able to work the emotional, spiritual dimension of trauma impacts us. And can we let it go instead of the trauma haunting throughout his life with sleeplessness and anxiety? Is it possible to let it go, to somewhat erase it? If not, to of whatever emotional distress and charge trauma may have recorded in us. So that's at the emotional spiritual level. And then the third dimension of trauma recovery and wellness is having the family, the community, and the team creating a supportive healing environment that will allow the individual to let go of the trauma, to create healing space, making that happen. And so we work here with ethics and values and moral code within the community that is supportive, that is anti, but there is, instead of being suppressive, is something that is personally empowering. What we found out is that in these three dimensions of the physicality, releasing the pains. Second is in the emotional, spiritual, releasing the emotional trauma. And then thirdly, creating a healing space. These are the three holistic dimensions that we're looking at, that we have tried and tested with thousands of frontliners, police officers, Marines, soldiers, students who have gone through a actual trauma situation in their life. That's what we're looking at, Dr. Ben.
Well, I think it's fantastic, and I think what's very important to note is that it's not a philosophy, because you actually have implemented this with soldiers,
Yes.
with police, and with actual results. And you know, the last show, we had a good friend of mine, Fred Smith, who was 40 something days in the desert during one of our wars, and the trauma that our veterans experience, and also the trauma really that any of our justice officials who enforce justice, who bring security to our communities, they experience traumas, unfortunately, when they deal with these negative elements. What I find very interesting about your approach is that it actually works. And what's very interesting is that the Surgeon General's advisory basically goes right in concordance with what you're touting. And what's even more interesting now is that the Secretary of Health and Human Services of the United States of America, which is RFK Jr., has had such a strong stance on non-pharmacological approaches that he feels we've been subject to too much pharmacology, too many vaccines, too many approaches that are not necessarily what people used to call holistic, but actually Secretary Kennedy is showing actually with integrity that these are natural approaches and that the body itself has a capacity to heal with proper nutrition, with proper exercise. And it seems like we're getting into a new golden age where we can get natural, incorporating medicine, incorporating healthcare, incorporating what you're bringing out, which is the newer technology of how the spiritual side interweaves. I wanted to let you know something very interesting, that the physicists of the world have found a phenomena called entanglement. And that this entanglement phenomena means that two particles which originally start together in some kind of intermixing conglomeration, if you separate them, even though they're light years apart, what happens with one particle immediately is duplicated by the other particle light years away. The ramifications are amazing and lead me to understand what your program is doing. Tell me a little bit about your what you have as far as philosophy and goal with this program that you developed, and whether it's a national or a global viewpoint that you have.
Surely, we are looking at a program that I believe and we have seen is definitely universal, meaning regardless of race, geography, gender, age, or belief, it can work. It is working and working very well to bring back, as you said, the natural healing ability of human beings. It is reconnecting with that. That is the basic principle and policy that we're looking at. That one, you as human beings, we are basically good and we have the capacity to heal ourselves. So it is rediscovering that without pharmacological approaches, but rather reconnecting with our true physical self and our ability to heal. Reconnecting and communicating with the body, because what we found out is that a lot of the pain that we have, especially that has been brought about by trauma, stays with us because we are disconnected with the pain, with the trauma in our physical body. So the basic principle here, Dr. Ben, is reconnecting with that and allowing the energetic flows within our body to then heal ourselves. So we do this with specifically with physical assists and with different approaches that allows ourselves with the support of another second person who is trained in that to assist us and our body to reconnect with ourselves. That's one. The second principle of how do you heal the trauma of the emotions and the spirit is that many times the trauma is like a recording that keeps on playing itself, like a tape recording going over and over, or a CD that goes on automatic loop of replay. So what we're looking at is, can we shift the loop and go on erase? How do we do that? So with the help of a counselor or an auditor, this is a non-invasive allows us to erase the emotional spirit trauma. This is what we're looking at.
Well,
It takes a few
I
minutes.
was going to say something to you. It was very interesting. And by the way, your camera shifted slightly. And if you could shift it back, thank you. That's perfect. And so what I was going to say to you is that's very interesting because so many people complain to me, and especially some athletes, because I love to go to the gym, that, they recover physically, but they have an emotional aspect. They have a fear of going back to what they were doing. There's like a restraint that's there emotionally. And this is what you're talking about handling. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So it's working with ourselves. Many times we need the support of what's called as a counselor or auditor, somebody who can listen to us and allow us to release the spiritual emotional pain. So it's non-invasive and it's purely self-determined. That's the beauty of it. And we've used this with police officers, soldiers who just came back from a shooting war. And you can imagine the trauma that they went through, especially if they got wounded themselves. How do you release that and get into a natural healing process?
And you
That's
know,
what we're looking at.
it makes so much sense. And what I was going to say to you is you're going to be one of the participants May 16th at the United Nations Global Time for Truth Conference. And, you know, you're a main speaker. And I wanted to ask you if we can get a little bit of glimpse about what you'd like to present to that forum and to the world at the United Nations.
Very good. Thank you for this opportunity, Dr. Ben. Yes, I am working with a number of different individuals in that International United Nations Conference. One is we're looking at iconic models that represent hope, that represent healing, that represent individuals who have succeeded with victory in overcoming trauma of their past, of their childhood. So I'm referring to here now in this conference, we have invited the Senator Matt, you might have heard of him. He is the only global boxing champion, 8 belts or weight levels categories. Nobody else has been able to do this. And he was able to do this, and he will be talking and speaking about how he has overcome the trauma from his childhood, which was in dire poverty in the Philippines, and overcoming the poverty. Literally, he was saying to me that as a young boy, he had to go to sleep really hungry, physically hungry, not metaphorically hungry, but physically hungry, not enough food to eat. And his mother would say, just drink 2 glasses of water so that your growling stomach can be tempered and so you can go to sleep. So that was a literal situation image of what he had to go through. But in spite of that, with his will, his spirit, and his grit to overcome adversity, and poverty, he was able to train himself and become a world champion at 8 weight levels, never been done before by anybody else. So
So
that's why he will be speaking.
this is Senator Manny Pacquiao, world champion in 8
Yes,
weight classes. Because you know what, the connection broke up a little bit. So not to have a mystery for the viewers, this is Dr. Tagle, Perez Tagle is speaking about Manny Pacquiao, world renowned, really the only boxer in the history of boxing to win 8 different weight divisions of champion, global champion, world champion, and now Senator Manny Pacquiao and Minister Manny Pacquiao, who takes care of so many people. So I want to make sure the viewers, because there was a little bit of lapse in the connection for the Philippines, but continue now.
thank you. Yes,
So he's going to be one of the invitees. And, you know, we have others there. We have some representatives from the government of many different nations. We have different health leaders who are going to be coming. And really what we're looking at the conference is how to actually conglomerate and agree on going forward with humanity, with a family unit. You know, the family unit has been decimated, and it's so important that we protect the family unit the mothers, the children who are the future of our civilization. We're getting near the end of the show, Doctor. So I wanted to ask you, what message would you like to give those people watching in terms of what you would like to see happen in 2025 and into the future?
Surely. Thanks for that question. What I'd like to share and leave is this message that in spite of the many travails, the many difficulties, the changes that are happening in lives, in our communities, and in our country, world, very optimistic that we will flourish and prosper. We will overcome, just like Manny Pacquiao, or just like the frontliners who have overcome trauma. We may have our own small or big trauma in our life, but there is an innate technology within us to heal ourselves. And it starts, I truly believe, with a belief, an attitude of the reality and truth of hope of our capacity, our innate goodness and ability to heal ourselves. That is the starting point of optimism, and not to surrender to despair, not to surrender to depression or inaction, but rather to see and believe that we have communities like this show of Dr. Ben, we have technologies, and we have the knowledge, if you don't have it yet, that you can access. And this is how we are passing through historic changes today. And I think we're very lucky to be at this point of time of human history. That's what I want to say, each and everyone.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that came out of the destruction of COVID is that there was an awakening that occurred. And it's so interesting in life how sometimes going through very hard times gets humanity to come together, gets
Yes.
right, to get the realization of life, of the value, the miracle of the lives that we all share in common on this earth. And to see, like you said, that science is starting to now intermingle with spiritual philosophies, with religion. That it's no longer a dichotomy, but a gradient of one with the other, a symbiosis, where we see God's work in the world, which led to the science of the world. It's very interesting because it seems like the intelligence and awareness of our globe has increased. And I look forward to seeing you and all the other leaders at that May 16th Global Time for Truth Conference.
Yes.
I think we have about 30 seconds. What final few words would you like to leave those viewers out there, Dr. Perez de Tagle?
Yes. I would like to personally meet you and influence and touch your heart to this truth, that as we rediscover, if we may have lost it or we have glossed it over, to rediscover this truth in each and every one of us. This is the truth that we're talking about, and it is with this truth that we realize science is beginning to catch up with the spiritual wisdom that the world and civilizations have known for thousands of years. And just like what you had mentioned, Doctor, that we may be light years apart, but we are always connected. That is a truth that science is rediscovering now, which we have known spiritually through the ages. So let's
So
stay with
true.
that. Let's stay with that.
So true. It's a very amazing time. And you know, as we come to the end of the show, let's take a look at the virtues of life, the importance of our dignity, of respect one for another, because of how much we bring each other. When we're flying over the city, whatever city it is, and we look down, there's a whole conglomeration of all different beings doing all different functions of all different colors, races, and religions. Let's look at the reality of the beautiful coordination that we have. And Dr. Tagle, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And for those of you watching, we look forward to having you again. And tune in for our next segment of A Time for Truth show. Be well.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet